Sometimes we think that we lost a blessing when in actuality, we are the blessing that got away. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Confidence Restored podcast presented by CC America, also known as Confidence Centers of America, and hosted by Tamaria Jordan. This is a show designed to help you build your confidence, increase your faith, and get mentally fit to overcome any trials and tribulations you may encounter. Through personal testimonies of faith, inspiration, and transformation, Tamaria and guests seek to inspire and uplift you. This message is delivered by us, CCing you on lessons learned in hopes of encouraging you regardless of where you are in life. Enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to another live taping of the Confidence Restored podcast. I am your host, Tamaria Jordan. And if you are tuning in for the first time, you are certainly in for a treat. This show is all about helping you get mentally fit through testimonies of faith, inspiration, and transformation. If you are tuning back in, thank you so much for joining us again. So tonight's episode will be one that's relatively quick, but I wanted to share a message that dropped in my spirit last week. And I realized I was driving home and I had a thought. I said, sometimes we think that we lost a blessing when in actuality, we are the blessing that got away. So I don't know where the thought came from. I'm going to say that it was divinely sent to me at that time. But I was thinking so often in life, we look at the things that we think we lost, whether that's a partner in a relationship, whether that's a job, whatever it is, we think that we lost something valuable when those things come to an end. When in actuality, you may very well be the blessing that got away. So with everything that we are given in this life, we have to be mindful to take good care of it. Because when we think about what the word reminds us, it tells us that when we are faithful over few things, God will make us ruler over many. And many of us, we forget that part of the stipulation is being faithful over the few. So if we're not faithful over that which we have been blessed with, how can he trust us with more? So when you think about in the context of relationships, so say for instance, you have a friendship, you don't cultivate that friendship. You don't call, you don't check in, you don't go out with the other person, you don't continue to build on that friendship that you started. That blessing can become a burden because that blessing is no longer feeding into you and you're not feeding into it. So in order for you to be a blessing, you have to be mindful of what you bring to the table. If you are bringing camaraderie, if you are bringing honesty, integrity, if you are bringing value to the relationship, then you can be considered essentially the blessing that got away. But if you're bringing to that relationship negativity, or you are not being honest, or you're not bringing just integrity in general, then you have to think to yourself, wait a minute, maybe I am mishandling the blessing. So it goes both ways. And so I'll just share a few personal examples just to illustrate the point, but I think it was a powerful one because so often with many of us, we think that because, like I said earlier, that thing ended, that our life is over, that we can't start fresh, that we can't keep going. So I'll give an example it's been over a decade now. I was in a role and I had a manager who was, I'll say, less than honest 100% of the time. And so they had said some things that were not true. But I remember feeling so down after going through that situation because I knew the things that they had said were not honest about me. And even though I could prove what they said wasn't true, it was almost as though everyone wanted to believe that I was the bad person, to believe the lies that this person was saying about me, and they brought into the lie. And so they treated me accordingly, AKA they mishandled me, which in all actuality, I was the blessing. And so I was working hard. I was stepping up. I was covering for individuals that were no longer in the position. We were short staffed. So I was doing everything that I could to make sure that I stayed on top of things, that I helped out my peers, that I helped out the teams. And when it came down to it, Me and a specific individual had a disagreement. That person was upset because I did not agree with their methods. And I also felt that there was favoritism in play. And because I called them out on that, they felt the need to try to essentially ruin me and ruin my place in that particular company and in that position. And for a period, I allowed that to affect my confidence. I started to think I lost my blessing, when in all actuality, God behind the scenes was setting up something for me that I couldn't see. That is what helped birth what we have now, which is CC America, because I realized I'm not what she said I was. I'm not what they said I couldn't do. My confidence was restored in knowing who I am. And it wasn't easy. Don't get me wrong. It was not a cakewalk to have people assassinating your character, to have people coming after your good name and saying things that were not true. Even though you could prove that what they were saying wasn't true, it still hurt. But I realized that I was the blessing that got away. Meanwhile, in the season, I thought that that job, that role, that function was the blessing that I lost. And when you think about relationships, romantic relationship, the word says, blessed is he who finds a wife, for he finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. If you are someone who is mishandling your blessing, and this can go both ways, it doesn't necessarily just have to be a woman to a man. It could be a man to a woman. The man could be the blessing, and the woman can mishandle that as well. But when you think about in the context of what the Bible says, if you have a wife and you choose to mishandle that blessing, you choose to lie to her, you choose to cheat on her, you choose to do things that are not beneficial to that relationship, even though that woman may feel like, I thought this person was my blessing, if that person is moved out of your life because you find out something or what have you, or maybe it's revealed, maybe you didn't mean to find out, but you did, or maybe that person says, you know what, you're not the person I want to be with. They have that choice. But you may think, oh my gosh, I lost the blessing. And say, for instance, in the context of husband and wife, well, the Bible says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. If you mishandle that blessing that you have, then that favor, in essence, leaves you. So again, that's a different situation, but in the context of that situation, you may feel like, I lost my blessing because I'm separated, because I'm divorced, because I'm no longer in that particular relationship. When the whole while, if you were doing everything that you could and you were doing right by the other person, in all actuality, they lost their blessing. And I remember my great grandmother always said, and I mentioned this on the last show, she said, don't be a piano. In essence, don't get played. When we think about life, we think about situations, we think about friendship. So I've used an example of a friendship. I've used an example of a job. I've used an example of a relationship. I'm going to bring it back to the context of business. A business name without people is just that, a name. A business to run effectively and efficiently has to have people. It's like a home without inhabitants. It's a building essentially with no heartbeat. If there are no employees, then a business is not sustainable because it's nothing but a name. So we think about what's happening now with regard to the Great Resignation. Sometimes people mishandle the blessing of the employees that they have. So if there are employees who are underpaid, if they are overworked, if they are mistreated or disrespected, if those people decide to leave, they may think to themselves, I lost my blessing, when in all actuality, they were the blessing that got away, because a company cannot survive without people. So as I mentioned, this would be a quick message, but I think it's a powerful one, because when we think about our lives, we all have to be mindful of what we say, what we do, and how we treat other people. And I like to say, if you would not like that particular action done to you, then you should think twice about doing it to someone else. Because if you put yourself in someone else's shoes, and mind you, I get it, we cannot always walk in someone else's shoes. But if you consider for a moment, if I do X, then it may cause Y, then I think we will be able to take a step back and evaluate how we treat the people in our lives. Because if we mishandle the blessing, that person or that thing, that job, whatever it is, becomes the blessing that got away. But when you do right by people, you are the blessing that sometimes gets lost in the process. So when people don't treat you right, when people lie on you, when people mishandle you, and they don't realize what a blessing you are in their life, you have to take a step back and realize their actions are not a reflection on you. Their actions are a reflection of their choices, the same way that your actions are a reflection of your choices. So choose wisely. Choose to treat people with the respect that you would like to be given. And granted, I like how they say this goes beyond the golden rule, but essentially treat people how they want to be treated. And at least consider, if I would not want that particular thing done to me, then I probably shouldn't do it to other people. And I just find it funny in today's society, in today's day and age, individuals will make excuses for their poor behavior and say, it's because of someone else that I did this, when in all actuality, it's your choice. If a company chooses to lay people off because they need to cover the bottom line, if the remaining employees are overwhelmed by the amount of work that's left and they choose to leave, how can said company be upset at the employees who are choosing themselves the same way the company chose itself? And the company, meaning the leaders within the company. In a relationship, if you choose to mishandle the blessing that is your significant other, whether that's a boyfriend, girlfriend situation, whether that's a wife, a husband, if you choose to mishandle the blessing that you have and that person chooses to respond to your actions and walk away, well, that's the blessing that you lost because you did not treat that blessing with the respect that you would want in return. So really think about how you treat other people, what you want out of this life, and know that you have the power to be a blessing in any and everyone's life that you choose to. But if you choose not to be a blessing, if you choose to mistreat people, then you cannot be upset when those said people decide to walk away. They have that choice. And there was a post that I saw. I actually posted it earlier on my Instagram story, and I thought it was powerful because it talked about boundaries. And this week, I've been posting a lot of posts specifically about boundaries, where I talk about the importance of boundaries because I'm someone who oftentimes lacked boundaries. I tended to think, well, if I make everyone happy, they will be pleased with me. But I'm learning that even if you try to do everything that someone else wants you to do, you start to lose more of yourself in the process. And then the blessing that you are, something gets tarnished along the way because you're changing who you are to fit a mold for someone else that may not even appreciate what you bring to the table as it is. So why give them more? There was a different post that I saw. Why give them more of what they already don't appreciate? So when it comes to boundaries and it comes to blessings, I read a post from Cheryl Strayed that said, but boundaries have nothing to do with whether you love someone or not. They are not judgments, punishments, or betrayals. They are a purely peaceable thing. Boundaries teach people how to treat you, and they teach you how to respect yourself. And I thought it was so powerful because it really was thinking about the fact that oftentimes your blessing gets away because you don't take the time to cultivate, to nurture it. Or if you think that you lost a blessing, it's because in your mind, you realize that what you lost may be greater than what you may offer. And so another post that I shared along the lines of boundaries, rejection, and forgetting that we too can be a blessing. It's not always that we lost something. In all actuality, someone else may have lost something of value when they lost us. But the post said, Jesus was rejected more than what we will ever experience in our lifetime. Yet, it did not affect his assignment. So I am here to encourage anyone who might be feeling down, who needs their confidence restored, to say, your assignment has nothing to do with how other people treat you unless you let it. You have to believe that who you are and what you bring to the table is big enough to be sustained on its own and with the power of God if you truly believe in who you are. Because other people will come and tell you all day, every day, what you can do, what you can't do, but that's their own limitation. So realize that while we have blessings that come into our life on a regular basis, and I thank God for all of the blessings that are in my life and that have been in my life, but sometimes when those things come to an end, you have to take a step back and realize that it's not always that you lost a blessing, but that someone else may be losing theirs. So that company that laid you off, they lost their blessing. That person that walked away, they lost their blessing. That friendship that ended, they lost their blessing. So if you're a good person, realizing that you too could be the blessing that got away, and it's not always about what you lost or what you think you lost, as long as you continue to treat people well and do right by them, then in the event that a situation comes to an end, you can stand with your head held high and be confident in knowing that I did everything that I could to make this work and it didn't. And so the same way that I felt that I had that blessing at one point in my life, God can give me double for my trouble, and I can be rewarded with more blessings. Because sometimes doors shut because God sees what's happening behind the scenes. You may not know the things that are happening, but He sees it. And He's like, in order for me to take you to the next level, I have to move those people out of the way that aren't really there for you. The same way with Jesus. Jesus knew He would be betrayed, but it did not stop His confidence in knowing what God had called Him to do. So I am realizing more than ever that in a lot of situations, I am the blessing that got away. And for the person who's wondering if you're good enough, if you're worthy, reframe your thinking and realize that you too are the blessing that got away. It's not always what you lost. Sometimes it's what you gain, and having that peace of mind and knowing that just like other things can be a blessing to you, you can be a blessing to it. So on that note, I hope that you are encouraged, and the affirmation for today is exactly what the show is called. When you realize that you are the blessing that got away, and not only just the blessing that you thought you lost, you will tap into a level of confidence, and you will be able to believe in yourself more than ever. Believe that you are more than enough. Believe that you are a conqueror. Believe that you are a blessing. Believe that you can do more in the future than what you did in the past. Believe that you are who God says you are. Believe that you can do what He says you can do. And everything that you think you lost, if you keep believing and you keep being a good person and you keep doing good things, you're only going to put out in the atmosphere that which you want to receive in return. And even though it might be difficult in this season, I do believe that the goodness will come back to you fourfold. Because even though it seems like the wicked may be prevailing in certain circumstances, know that there are forces that are in play, and there are more good forces than there are evil, contrary to what it may feel like. So be encouraged on tonight. Continue to believe in who you are and whose you are. And until next time, be blessed. Thank you for tuning in to another live taping of the Confidence Restored podcast by CC America. We are grateful that you tune in week after week and join us for testimonies of faith, inspiration, and transformation. Please be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and let others know that you are listening to the Confidence Restored podcast. You can also now buy us a coffee to show appreciation at buymeacoffee.com/CC America. Until next time, be blessed.